USCHO.com.
Welcome to USCHO Edge for Friday, January 6, 2023. Each week we handicap and prognosticate about some top games this weekend. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th, 2023 at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. Secure your seats at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly and Dan Rubin. Well, gentlemen, it's been a few weeks because there haven't been a lot of games and there haven't been a lot of money lines, but we got a few interesting ones this weekend, starting with the most lopsided line we've seen so far as we've done this podcast. It's the Desert Hockey Classic in Tempe, Arizona at the brand new Mullet Arena. And the first round games include BU versus Air Force and Michigan Tech at Arizona State. Boston University is a whopping minus 675 versus Air Force, which is a plus 410. The over-under is 6.5. I guess if you want to bet on an upset, this is one where you could make some money.
Yeah, and Rubin, I'm not going to give away too much of the Friday column, but Rubin already picked Air Force in this one. Like, what are you doing, kid?
Good I picked Wisconsin. I picked Wisconsin, and if you'd have listened to me, you'd have won some money.
But come on.
Weeks ago, last month, whatever it was,
listen.
I was texting you updates from that game as every single Wisconsin goal crossed. I don't even remember which game it was, nor do I care. All I know is I picked Wisconsin, and I won that one. And the only reason why I picked Wisconsin, if you remember it, was because why would you bet a heavy favorite? So why would you bet this game, Jimmy? Why would you bet this game?
I wouldn't bet this game. I might bet the over-under in this game. And if so, I honestly might stay under. I feel like this could be a game that could be, easily a 3-1 game. I will admit I haven't seen enough Air Force, but I've seen enough BU. And I know how they're playing right now. And they just played a squeaker against Harvard last week, a 2-1 overtime game. So I like the under here. But I will go, and I'll say we've already had 3 holiday tournaments so far. Clarkson won out in Wisconsin at the Quick Trip Invitational. We had Western Michigan. Maybe not a lot of teams saw them winning the GLI, and then we had Providence winning at Ledger Bank. I think that we would have said that maybe, you had UMass, and they actually had a 3-0 lead on Clarkson in the Wisconsin tournament. They probably could have won that tournament. We might have said Merrimack would win in Hanover. And I think we all probably thought that Michigan State, which finished last, probably could have won the GLI. But hey, that's why we play these tournaments. And these tournaments, every coach that talks about these tournaments, they say that they're a great preparation if you believe you're an NCAA tournament team for how things go in the postseason. Even your conference tournaments, you're playing 2 games back-to-back nights, some odd start times sometimes. These are great tests for these teams. But come on. I love Frank Serratore, one of the nicest men in college hockey. He keeps me laughing every time he's talking about the game. But this BU team has turned it on, and they are really good.
Well, I mean, I gave away why I bet this one why I would bet this one the way that I would, which is I would stay the hell away from it. Like there's no benefit to. Look, if Air Force wins this game, how many people who listen to us or are watching this actually believe going into this that Air Force is going to win this game? And trust me, I love Frank as much as the next person. It's an Atlantic hockey team, which I mean everyone knows means that I'm going to have a soft spot. But when you look at the numbers and you look at the way Air Force played this year after that opening stretch when they went to the shootout, I think it was at home against Notre Dame, and they played well against RIT, and they played well against Colorado College after they gave up the snowman. There's a team that has not played particularly well. So if you're trying to break this down and you look at the numbers, by pure numbers, Air Force, we say doesn't stand a chance, right? I mean, the BU is just too good. BU's turned it on. Air Force hasn't given us that. The only thing is when you look at the odds, you tend to stay away from it. I tend to look at the under too, because anytime you look at an over under that's that high, it's going to take a lot to get there. I mean, what do we say? It was 6.5? 6.5 means you need, even if BU goes out and bludgeons Air Force 5-1, you're still hitting the under. Like you need one of those schools to hit 4 or 5 goals and the other one to match at least 2, that's asking a lot from an Air Force team that, if again you're judging it by the numbers, has had no problem giving up 3-4 goals a game, but it needs to be able to score 1 or 2, because you can't expect the team to go out and score 8. You just can't look at that game and say, yeah, BU will give us 7. We're good.
Well, you know what? I want to maybe play devil's advocate on the over-under. First of all, everybody's scoring a lot this year. The numbers are just ridiculous. Air Force is giving up 3.9 goals a game. BU is scoring 3.8 a game. BU is doing it against much better competition than Air Force has been against. So there's something right there. And I'll tell you what, here's the other thing. If this was the first round in a regional in the NCAA playoffs, I'd bet Air Force all day.
Oh,
yeah.
But not now.
Yeah. Exactly. I agree with you there, Ed. I feel like the upsets always happen. You know, NCAA tournaments, you're already looking past that lost opponent in that 16 seed, whatever. So, yeah, I agree with you there. We see too many upsets from that 15, 16 spot over a 1-2 in recent years. But let's be realistic here. We gotta keep some perspective. We're still in the regular season. Would I love to see Air Force win? Absolutely. Would it make an awesome, 2-team, 3-team parlay if you could hit two or three of these games together and Air Force is the winner? Whew. Yeah, I'd love to, but my money's not going there.
The other half of the tournament, and boy, this is a huge weekend for Arizona State. They want to beat Michigan Tech and they want to beat BU to really give a lift to their postseason chances. It would be a huge pairwise weekend for them. Arizona State at home is -130. Michigan Tech is +100. It's pretty close. The over-under is 6.
I got bad vibes about Arizona State after last weekend. With the Boston College loss. I just we talk about Arizona State in the pairwise and in the games they need. They need to beat Michigan Tech. They need to be able to beat Boston University, which is reliant on an outcome that they have no control over either. If they play Air Force, there's no value to them whatsoever in that second game. But focusing on the first game, there's something about Arizona State for me right now that I just can't put my finger on, that I'm just saying it doesn't feel like a great bet. However, and this is where I'm going to contradict myself almost immediately, it's at home. And Arizona State has been good at home. We've talked about that multiple times. So that might be enough to tilt the scale for me. I think it actually is. I think I picked Arizona State. But there's something about them that I just can't quite put my finger on that says it's not a safe bet by any stretch of the imagination.
I'm going to go the other route with that. I did not mind that loss to BC, and I loved the bounce back win the next night. And I think that said as much about Arizona State as anything. If I have any problem with Arizona State of late, it was losing a game to New Hampshire on the road, a game that they knew they had to have. This team is phenomenal at home. I think that Michigan Tech's a great team as well. We know that. But Arizona State at home has been phenomenal. I don't know what the turnout is for a tournament that will be played without students there. I assume they still will draw. I mean, we haven't seen this tested yet, right? Because Mullet Arena has been open for a couple of months. It's been students have been there. The old place, Oceanside, even if you didn't have students, you basically just needed, the 50 people to walk in off the street and you were sold out. This is a little different. They've got to put some bodies in. I think they've marketed this tournament well. Talking with Greg Powers, he knows how important these games are. They don't have a lot of chances down the stretch. The way that their semi-independent schedule is made, it's mostly independence the rest of the way, so that you don't have a chance to make up too many pairwise points. But so they know this weekend is big. I know that he's talking to his team about how big what this weekend is. And I guarantee you that first night, and it's a big reason I like him. Maybe they don't, if they play BU, they don't beat them. If they play Air Force, who knows? But if they play BU, maybe they don't beat them, but they know that they want to get to that second night. They want to be playing for a championship. And under Greg Powers, when they have been in tournaments, they have done very well.
What about that over-under of 6? Is that one to stay away from?
Yeah.
Yes,
it is. It is. Both of these teams can score, but both of them have good goaltenders. So it's it's one that's hard to look at and say, oh, this, it's going to go over for sure. It's going to go under for sure. Plus this one, six. I always say 6 draws more than any number in hockey. You have a 3-2 game becomes 4-2. 6 is a draw. A 5-1 game, 6 is a draw. 4-2 game, 6 is a draw. So it's just one of those things that I never love 6. I love 6.5. I love 5.5 to give me some edge. You don't have a lot with 6.
Yeah, I add nothing to this on that. I agree with you 100%. And the thing that I guess I would throw in there too is if you're looking at a 6 and it's a flat number, if you are picking a team outright to win, you're basically saying it needs to be 4-2 or better. And if you don't believe either of those teams can get to 4 goals to get to the 6, then you're not. If you don't believe either one's getting to 4, you're not going to believe either one's getting to 5. And if that's the case, you can't, in your right mind, look at an over/under of a flat number and say, yeah, I'll take it. Because a 3-3 game, you're not picking the winner at that point, and you're still getting the draw. So 6 is a tough number. 5 even is way too low. I don't think we've seen 5 show up at all. So it's one of those things where unless there's the half kind of incites it tingles the senses a bit more than a flat number would with the 6.
Well, we will see a couple of games with an over-under of 5 when we continue. We have a Big Ten matchup, a CCHA rivalry, and a non-conference game between 2 teams from the state of Minnesota. When we continue, USCHO Edge is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th, 2023 at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida.
All right, class, it's the NCAA Men's Frozen Four. Welcome to Fandom 101. Want to help your team rule the rink? Here's your assignment. Lesson 1, go big for every goal. 2, when you bring it, bring enough for the whole class. And 3, attendance is encouraged, but passion is mandatory. The NCAA Men's Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. Buy your tickets today at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. Class dismissed.
Back with more of USCHO Edge. I'm Ed Trefzger with Jim Connelly and Dan Rubin. Big Ten, Notre Dame, -145 at the Badgers, Wisconsin, a +115, and an over-under, a small one of 5.
So you jinxed it there, Rubes, by saying we hadn't seen a 5.
Yeah.
I think we've had a couple. They've been very few and far between, but the next 2 are going to be 5s. I think this is a good series, actually. Wisconsin, they've got to show up at some point. I think they're a better team than they're playing as. And I think Notre Dame is probably a better team than they've played in their first half. They've stayed relevant. Wisconsin has knocked themselves out of relevance a little bit. But you still have half a year ahead of you. And maybe you can't do anything in the pairwise, but why can't you do something in the Big Ten? And I think that's where Wisconsin is. Their mind has to be right now. They've got talent on that team, and I don't understand why you're not getting some better results. And I know this. I think injuries played a role. I've talked to some people, and I get that. Notre Dame, I think, went through the same thing. They had some bad injuries earlier this season. I still like the Irish in this because I don't know why I'm not convinced on Wisconsin yet, but they've got to show me that they can play hockey. And right now, I just don't feel like they're a consistent night in, night out. So if, I know you think you won a ton of money, even though you don't bet there, Danny boy, but Wisconsin, they've pulled out some nice upsets here and there, but they've lost too many games thus far. I'm going with Notre Dame.
I mean, I actually took Notre Dame too, and if we're being serious about this, the thing that I hate are home underdogs. Home dogs just never that stings when you have a team that's. If you're at home, you should. What's the rule? Like you always want to win at home, draw on the road. Like that's the kind of the rule of thumb to get yourself into the right position. And I don't know. There's something about Notre Dame that has kind of been fishy this year on the first night of a weekend. I know that they lose. They've lost a ton of games that have been the first night, and then they come back and win the second night. It happened around New Year's with Alaska. It happened against Penn State. It happened against the BU-BC weekend around Thanksgiving. Like Ohio State, same idea. But when I look at their record and I look at kind of how things have played out on those 2 nights, it has felt that they've been better than maybe losing the first night and all of those weekends would feel for me. And I've been kind of high on Notre Dame a lot this year. I know they're 16th in the pairwise, which means they've got to start making moves. This is one of those where, as much as I'd love to say home dog, you kind of go after that. I would take Notre Dame just because I feel like that something's going to break for the Irish. I do think they're better than the record indicates. The one thing I will say is I would avoid the over under. An over under of 5 just feels low for me. Like it's just one of those things. You get one of those weird hops or something like that. I don't like 6. I hate 5. Like I just hate the number itself. Like it's just not a good number to bet.
Pump the over. Come on, pump the over.
Pump the over.
These two teams play in the Big Ten. They know how to score in that league. The other thing that stands out to me, and I do not have any data in front of me about this, but I remember Notre Dame's days in Hockey East, and I remember a few Notre Dame runs since they've been in the Big Ten. They always seem to play better after the new year. I don't know why that is. They seem to be a better second half team. I know losing their first game against Fairbanks last week did not feel good or help. Technically, it was before the new year, but I just feel like Jeff Jackson knows how to coach his teams in the second half. Legendary coach Jack Parker used to say it would take him until almost the bean pod to stop screwing up his team, and then they would just take over and they'd start winning. And yeah, that's kind of I did not have that quote right, but that's kind of what he was always trying to say, was that by the time we got to the bean pod, the team figured it out. I stopped screwing up the team. And I think that's probably something with Jeff Jackson too. You know, I'm sure he's a tinkerer. I feel like he's always trying to make some changes and do little things here and there. And sometimes you just got to let the guys play. And I guarantee his players know how to win. They got there because they knew how to win. You can say the same about Tony Granado's team too. But I just, for some reason, I always tend to side more with Notre Dame in the second half than the first half.
Can we assume that Jack's language was a little fruitier than I was screwing up the team?
Well, let's go to the other in-conference matchup, and that's Minnesota State minus 185 and Northern Michigan a plus 150. The over-under is 5.5. These two teams met earlier in the season at Mankato, a 3-2 overtime win for NMU and a 4-1 win for the Mavericks on the second night. Mankato comes into the weekend having been swept by Bemidji. Northern Michigan having a decent season. Is this an upset special?
Yeah, this line's off. This line seems just way too far off. For one thing, if I had to bet this, I'm not betting Minnesota State. There's no chance. Northern, I don't love that they're only getting 150, but I'll take it. You know, I mean, whatever. That's okay in my mind. But when you think about the fact they've already split a series, we've seen the last game we're going to cover is almost a pick'em, and I feel like this series is more of a pick'em than anything. You know, the over under 5.5. I used to love the under with Minnesota State. Now I'm starting to hammer the over. I think that they seem to always go over. And Northern can score goals. Like there's going to be goals scored in these games. I think that you could have a 4-3 game both nights in the series.
I don't know if Minnesota State's won a game since Paul Allen retired from their sports info department. If that's the case, this is what I'm banking on, is that they haven't at all. So it's the curse of Paul Allen, who we all love. Like I absolutely adore Minnesota State for all of the people there, but I cannot in my right mind pick against Northern Michigan right now. I will say this. This might actually be. I know that Minnesota State's been hitting the over. I like Northern Michigan, and I would kind of tease myself on to go nuts if I really want to with an under on this, because Minnesota State's history, blah blah, all that other stuff. Like you expect them to play very good defensive hockey. Northern Michigan has good goaltending, so I would venture that one or lodge that one in there. But I don't know. I don't love this game in general as a pick. I don't love a lot about this one. I feel like this is one of those that you throw your chips on the board and hope that the dice land in the right spot. Don't splash them. Do not splash your chips.
We're not playing roulette.
That was a combination craps roulette reference in there.
That's what that idea was.
Shows you how little I gamble. I just made I screwed up the reference and referenced both at the same time.
Oh, they don't like you splashing them in craps either. Trust me.
No.
Hand them neatly to the dealer. The dealer doesn't.
Yes. Yeah. And feel shame as you lose them.
Well, let's go to our last game on the list, and that's Minnesota Duluth. They're a minus 125 at Bemidji State, which is a minus 105. The over-under is 5. It's been kind of a down year for Minnesota Duluth. Bemidji State, as I mentioned, coming in after a sweep of Minnesota State. Some interesting news on this game that may influence what you think on it. Bruce Siskey, the longtime broadcaster for Minnesota Duluth, says that with an injury, Minnesota Duluth is going to be down to 12 forwards on the roster that are available to play. Obviously, 12 forwards is enough, but the depth of the Bulldogs is a bit limited there. What do you guys think on this one?
I know we always pick the Friday game. If we were talking about the Saturday game here, I'd be going all over Bemidji because you wear down a team. The forwards will be a little tired. You probably have guys playing positions that they don't love to play. Maybe you have guys that didn't play half the season. You never know what's in there in terms of the actual available forwards. But I liked Bemidji kind of the whole way, especially at home. Duluth, they've started to show signs of being a good team at times. But there's something missing in this year's bunch. I know they've really been dealing with the injury bug. This is like a lot of teams we talk about when you're banged up, it's hard. Over under a 5. This is another interesting one. Because I said when it's 5, you have to hammer the over. I think I hammer the over here. It's just one of those games that I think is a little bit more difficult to pick than the Notre Dame Wisconsin on the over under, but I like the over here again. But Bemidji's my definite pick here.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think when I look at Bemidji, the biggest problem I have with Minnesota Duluth is that they don't have much depth to their roster to begin with in terms of production. The scoring, it's all coming from one place. So if you remove and you look at their roster and you look at their stat sheet and you remove Ben Steeves in any way, shape, or form from, neutralizing him on the ice to penalty here, he's got 16 penalty minutes, whatever it is that you want to do that you say go out and stop him, then you're looking at a team that has trouble scoring. And for me, anytime you're kind of a one-shot team that's got a guy with 10 goals and nobody else, then you're going to look at the other team that has way more depth. And for me, that's where Bemidji comes in. Bemidji has a lot of guys who can score pretty well. So there's nothing that's gonna kind of jump off the page, and you're not gonna look at Bemidji and say, all right, they're gonna roll a line of Hobie Baker finalists at you. That's not the case at all. But they're gonna be able to roll 2-3 lines. And when we're talking about a team that's banged up and is only dressing 12 forwards, you get 2-3 lines in there. One of those lines is going to have some success, and for me, that's kind of the tipping point. So I'm going with Bemidji. The over under for me is just I'm always hammering the over on a 5. I hate it, so I'm just going to say just take the over. How many hockey games have we seen this year that have been 3-2s? Like it's just not. It's not happening. So
well, at least you can push on a 3-2.
You can. So all right. So we're looking at a 3-1. All right. So, do we really think that a team's not going to go out and have a 3? Now that I said that's going to be a 1-0 hockey game, I can already feel it.
Let me throw this number at you. Minnesota Duluth is averaging a paltry 2.3 goals per game. Bemidji, not a whole lot better at 2.8. That adds up to 5.1. There's your over-under right there.
I still think you get there. I think this game gets to some team gets to 4 here, and maybe it's 4-0. Maybe it's 4-1 you push, but I still think one of the teams gets to 4 here.
Before we wrap up, Jim has some words of wisdom for us.
Yeah, I know we don't get to talk about this because we always have to focus on Friday lines because that's what we get. Saturday, Frozen Fenway at Fenway Park, you have Northeastern and UConn playing the early game at 2:30. UMass, Boston College, 6 p.m. On the back half of that. Right now, as we're taping this, it's Thursday. Saturday's weather in Boston, 43 degrees with the chance of rain, some sun. I was at the Winter Classic on Monday, Boston against Pittsburgh. The ice was not good. And it's no criticism to the NHL and Dan Craig and all he does. I don't know who's going to be overseeing the ice this week. I think Dan Craig probably usually sticks around, helps out, the ancillary events. He's the ice guru, but it was very hard to get the ice in good shape. And because of that, whenever you have bad ice, you have to go under. I don't know what the over-under is going to be on the game. DraftKings hasn't put out a line yet. You might find some lines at some offshore books right now. I don't know what the over-under is, but I hammered the under on the Winter Classic. Real bet. Wanted to make sure. And I think the night before we were all out after the party that was thrown by the NHL, a bunch of us were out. They said, "What do you think tomorrow?" I said 2-1. And little did I know it was going to be 2-1, but it was exactly 2-1 was the final score. It was just so hard to make plays. The puck hops, the ice is slow. You can't use much speed. So it's going to be one of those double headers on Saturday where I don't expect fast ice. I don't expect fast play. If these games, especially when you have some teams in there that can get up and down the ice, you've got a Yukon team that's pretty fast, a UMass team that's fast, BC's fast, Northeastern. They have some speed, but they're pretty banged up. You should expect not too many goals. I still think I would expect a 2-1, 3-1 game out of both. I don't expect them to set the over under at 4.5 or 4. So if you're getting 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, hammer the under. Just my advice.
All right. Well, this program is for entertainment purposes only, and we hope you've been suitably entertained. We're going to wrap up here. USCHO Edge is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen 4, April 6th and 8th, 2023 at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. Grab your seats at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. You can find our podcast at uscho.com/podcast or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. For Jim Connelly and Dan Rubin, I'm Ed Trefzger, and this has been USCHO Edge.